light and a profound feeling of peace. But researchers report as many as 18% of these so-called experiencers say they've had a terrifying encounter with what most of us call hell.
I was in a place of darkness and torment, a place opposite of God. You know, some people call that purgatory, some call it hell.
Howard Storm was a non-believer, an atheist, until his near-death experience changed his life, because his vision took him not to the edge of heaven, but to the precipice of hell. It is 1985. Seemingly on top of the world, Howard is an acclaimed artist and a professor of art at Northern Kentucky University.
I was successful because I was a college professor. I was a full professor with tenure, had a wife, kids, house, money. It looked like I was fulfilling the American dream, but inside it was miserable.
Howard comes face to face with his inner turmoil when, while on vacation in Europe, a medical emergency brings him to the brink of death.
On June 1st, 1985, I was taken to the emergency room of the big public hospital of the city of Paris and France. And in the emergency room, they told me I had a perforation of the small stomach.
Enduring excruciating pain, Howard helplessly waits for a surgeon to arrive. After 10 hours, he lacks the strength to breathe. He knows he is dying.
I figured it was time to let go and let the death take me, run its course. And at that time, I was an atheist and believed that when you die, you die.
Howard closes his eyes, preparing to die. But almost immediately, he says he finds himself standing up next to his bed, looking back at himself.
That was horrifying because, you know, this has to be madness. Because obviously you can't be standing up outside your bed looking at yourself lying in the bed.
In the midst of his confusion, Howard recalls hearing voices summoning him from the hallway just outside his room.
They were going, "Howard, come on, hurry up, let's go. We've been waiting for you a long time. We can't wait much longer." I assumed that they were hospital personnel taking me to have the surgery. But when I walked through that doorway, the weirdest thing happened. I knew that I couldn't go back into the lighted room.
Howard suddenly finds himself in a dark, featureless place. He is surrounded by beings calling him in an increasingly chaotic wall of sound.
I didn't know where to go or how to get away from them. Eventually, in absolute darkness, they began to push and shove and bite and claw and do everything possible just to make me miserable, to torment me.
As depicted in his own drawings, Howard is in a state of sheer desperation.
There was one strategy in this place to keep this from just happening over and over and over again, was that I would have to become like them. And that made me feel really bad because I didn't want to be like them.
In absolute despair, a ray of hope comes from deep within Howard's memory.
I heard audibly my voice say to me, "Pray to God." And my reaction to that was like, dumb. I don't pray to God. I don't believe in God.
But with no other hope of escape, Howard says he tries to recall a prayer.
My notion of prayer was they were memorized phrases, memorized verses. And that's what I thought prayer was.
In desperation, Howard repeats anything he had memorized as a child that seems like a prayer.
You know, like "My country, 'tis of thee," for, amber waves of grain, the Lord is my shepherd, and I shall not want, God bless America, land that I love. I mean, I was hurling these phrases at these cruel people because they hated it so much, and it drove them off me. Because they could not bear any mention of God whatsoever.
I passed through this thick, clear wall of jello-like substance, and I entered another dimension. That's the only way I can describe it, as another dimension. And in this dimension, I knew down this other corridor of like a dungeon wall was hell. And the devil, I was in hell.
This is a meeting of the South Florida chapter of the International Association for Near-Death Studies in Fort Lauderdale.
And I really believe that God gave me that opportunity. Do you want to live, or do you want to die?
Dr. Barbara Romer, an internist, started the group in 1996 after hearing an increasing number of her patients relate near-death experience.
There are basically 4 types of less than positive experiences. The frightening ones, the distressing ones. In the type 1 frightening experience, this type is described just as one of the blissful ones, but the person perceives it with fear.
And all I can remember doing was screaming and crying and screaming and crying over and over again. I cannot stay here. I have to go back to my son. My son, Danny. I have to go back to my son, Danny.
In the type 2, that is described as a black, eternal void where one may feel bound. And there also have been described mechanistic and shadowy presences.
Howard Storm's experience fits into this type 2 category.
Through my pain, they got something out of it. Just sensation, perhaps. And so the more that they elicited pain from me, the more they were gratified.
In the type 3 less than positive experience, that is where there is the true graphic